Small business war stories. Small businesses are the soul of America. And this is where they tell their stories. I am your host, Pablo Fuentes. Hey, lovers of small businesses and good stories in general. Welcome to another episode. This is the fourth South by Southwest episode out of 5 that we're going to be doing between this week and early next week. And today we sat down with Bay McLaughlin. And Bay is really, really interesting. He lives in Hong Kong and he's in town for South by Southwest. And he works with companies that are starting things in the Internet of Things space, so connected devices. But he's got a lot of experience because he's been around a lot of small businesses. He used to work at Apple in California, and he worked with a lot of small businesses, helping them implement technology. So we talk about a lot of the common challenges that small businesses face and what he saw in his time there. And we also get into some of the cool things that he's doing with technology. Bay is a fascinating guy. He's lived in many places all over the world and had a lot of cool stories to share. This episode of Small Business War Stories, like every episode, is brought to you by Proven. Proven.com is the company I started, and it is a small business information hub. That's what it's evolved to. It started as a small business hiring tool, which we still have, and we encourage you to use. But we're also going broader. So if you have ideas about things we should cover at Proven and Small Business War Stories, please do email us at podcast@proven.com. But yeah, we're trying to help you run your business better, understand all the things that are happening, all the changes, and bring it to you in an interesting, cool format. Like today's interview with Bay McLaughlin. And again, this is part of our South by Southwest series in Austin, Texas. And we are live here in beautiful Austin, Texas. And this morning, I have the pleasure of sitting down with Bay McLaughlin of Brinc. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
And you have so many angles that you come out with. So you currently live in Hong Kong, right?
Yep, in Asia.
Yeah, that's awesome. You're our first guest from Hong Kong. We had yesterday our first guest from the UK. So you're our first guest from Hong Kong. We're breaking lots of ground here.
Yes, I love it. Bringing Asia into the mix.
Exactly. But you have a lot of experience with small businesses. You worked with Apple for a long time. Working with small businesses, right? What was your role there?
We actually created a new division. So Apple has a bunch of cool channels. They had education, online, retail, enterprise, government, but they had never really accessed the small to medium business market. And it's actually something Steve didn't really want to do.
Is that right?
We found that out later.
Wow. That's news. Breaking news in Small Business War Stories. Steve Jobs did not want to address small businesses.
Yeah, Jobs wasn't into it. But we ended up proving him wrong. We are about 6 of us that kind of started that out. And then it was very similar to, I think, the audience that you have, which was Apple has great tech, and everyone from these big tech companies down to the mom and pop, corner store or the taco shop or the coffee shop or whatever, was trying to figure out how to use their iPhones, their iPads, their Mac for business. So we created a whole division to help them out.
Yeah. So what did you do?
We ended up doing everything from sales to service to education and training. We did a lot of actually deployments and implementations. Like we'd actually go out there with engineers, and we would help them set it up. We'd train them. We had really, really hands-on support to try to educate that market, because most people think of their Apple technology as stuff they use for their personal life, but it's actually super powerful, and you can run your whole company on it.
Cool. What did you learn? So as you were building this division, working with small businesses, what did you see what insights did you get?
A ton. I mean, we worked with the smallest of small, one-person shops all the way up to Twitter, as our customer base. So got to see a pretty big range and type of business models out there. But I think one thing that I saw is that the kind of challenges of starting a small business are fairly universal.
Okay.
And it was a really nice opportunity for Apple to kind of go out of their comfort zone and say, we're going to really put on, the extra mile here and help you out and really figure out a way to help your company. And that just felt good, because we saw everything from mom and dad that was, had a side business and a side hustle, figuring out how to use Square on their phone to like take a credit card or something.
Yeah.
All the way up to full new, like really cool business models that I've never ever seen before.
Like what?
Couple of them really interesting, like people that were taking like in the Mission or in Hayes Valley. I lived in San Francisco, and they were like doing complete reconstruction using, I'm sure you've seen this now, but back then it wasn't common, like taking shipping containers and building full living facilities out of them.
I've
that
heard
were
of that.
Connected.
Here in Austin, somebody built a bar out of shipping containers.
Oh yeah,
which is unfortunate because it used to be a really cool bar in Rainy Street.
Yeah, no, it's not cool either. No, but I think
it's like one of my favorite sayings is Yogi Berra said, "Nobody goes there anymore; it's too crowded."
Got it.
So sorry, let's not get too far off the rails. So you're talking about the shipping containers as living facilities.
Yeah, no, it's just more of like seeing a lot of different. I think I got inspired by how passionate and creative all these small businesses really are. Because once you get big, you can't really do cool shit anymore. Like it gets really hard to do.
That's a good quote. We'll put that on our Instagram feed. Once you get big,
you can't, right?
Yeah.
Like it's really hard. You have to become really systematic and process driven, and you have to make sure things are repeatable, because if everything is, always changing as a big company, it's really hard to scale. And so I think that's really where my passion has always stayed. And I've always stayed in the early stage of the business, which is what we do at Brinc. We invest and help build the earliest stage, riskiest moments of businesses, which is the very beginning. So we really don't stay on.
But you're investing with the eye of these companies becoming enormous, large companies, right?
I think that's the fallacy of all this stuff. I mean, you and I talked about Silicon Valley. I was there for a long time, as were you. I got a bit of an axe to grind with the kind of the whole mentality there. But I think we really look at it different. When you're the first money into a team, like it could be a taco shop. Like it could be that small. If you're the first check in and you're the first investor, the first person to support them, you don't need them to grow 100x or 1,000x to make money or to make it make sense. So if we invest in a team and we're the first money in, then in a couple of years, that could be a really good investment. It doesn't have to be $1 billion business, like all that bullshit unicorn crap that you hear. And that's where I think, a couple of the things I did after my time at Apple, my second time, is I started working with these turnaround companies, like a film company, a juice company, a fitness company, an architecture firm. Because I really kind of got that sense of like, it's not about tech. It's about these are good people.
Yeah, it's about people and about stories.
Yeah, and that they have something that the world needs. And if you have the ability to support them, which I'm a pretty good operator and investor, and I was like, I want to help these people do what they're passionate about and help the world. And it just so happened that a lot of that had nothing to do with tech. And I think that's kind of where my heart always has been and still is in what I do. Like we invest in really smart, just good people a lot of times, like, man, that problem sucks. Let's solve that.
And your focus is on Internet of Things.
Yeah. And it's a terrible vernacular, man. It means like,
what does that actually mean?
It's about having hardware. I think that's the best way to, tell people. A lot of people know about apps and services.
Yeah. So your fridge telling you out of milk.
Yeah. God, I'm so sick of some of that crap. We focus on a lot of problems that I think really matter, like med tech and health tech. We have a bunch of cool stuff in diabetes, medical adherence.
Sensors.
And then agricultural tech is one of our newest trends that we're looking into. We have a lot of investments in ag tech because holy crap, man, like the more you learn about how problematic and how much trouble our food system and water supply is in, like you start realizing you got to do something about that.
Yeah, well, a lot of them are logistics problems, right? So the world hunger is not a production problem. It's a logistics problem.
I think there's both. It's certainly logistics, but I mean, there's lots of stuff like you've seen advancements in like the new types of rice and other things that have like, I think you have to do a lot of biology actually to kind of work on that, but different topic. But I think that there's,
we could do like a 3-hour podcast.
Probably. Yeah. There's just so many basic problems that people can solve locally. They don't have to be these big companies. They don't have to be some high tech solution. That's really what gets me out of bed in the morning is working with founders and helping them, solve the thing that makes them wake up in the middle of the night.
What's an example of something you invested in recently that you're excited about?
I mean, a lot of them. Probably the one I talk about the most recently is this is a little bit techie, but it's a diabetes product. Okay. My dad passed away of a diabetic heart attack. A lot of people in my family have had diabetes. The stats are kind of scary. 60% of Americans have type 1, type 2 are pre-diabetic. It's a big problem in Asia and China as well. So this is a sensor that goes in your shoe. Okay. And it goes in between the sole, the insert, the sole. And what it does is it recognizes whether someone's starting to lose the sensation in their feet, because type 2 diabetes in particular, you start losing circulation.
That's right.
And the challenge...
And eventually you can actually lose your foot, right?
Well, this is it. So 200 people in America have their legs or feet amputated every day. Over 70,000 people a year just in America. And the problem with that is that particular issue is that once it happens, you're already on the operating table. There is no let's get it back. Like, by the time it happens, it's too late. And so these are those things that, I mean, it isn't like, world hunger, right? But 70,000 people in America have to have their legs or feet amputated every single year. Like, that just doesn't have to happen.
Right.
And when you find a founder that's passionate about working on that.
And what does the sensor do? How does it work?
So it actually recognizes when your balance starts changing, because you don't know what's happening. You just think you're walking or standing or whatever. But the technology can actually identify that it's different, that things are changing, and that it means, generally speaking, that you're losing sensation because you're changing how you normally would stand on your foot.
Wow.
So we can identify that, tell them, their loved ones, the doctor, before it becomes a problem.
Interesting. So who are the people that would self-select into choosing to have that in their shoe?
So it'd be someone that's already seeing a doctor for diabetes. Yeah. Okay. So someone that's already taking medication, already seeing a doctor. So it's not
just like, you feel like, okay. So
it wouldn't be a mass market product, right? Like, it'd be people that already have identified they have that issue. They're getting medication from a doctor.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's get back a little bit more to the things that you saw, that you've learned about small businesses. What are the common threads, some of the challenges that you've seen people face, and also maybe in your companies that people face, and how have people dealt with them?
The thing that I see, kind of two major things. I think the first one is probably more of a modern kind of young millennial problem, which I think you said you have a bit of a younger audience too, that the idea of being an entrepreneur, being your own boss, seems super sexy. And first off, the life is super tough. Like, it is.
Yeah, I only did it because I can't be an employee, so I had no choice.
I think I hear that a lot. I think that makes sense, but I think a lot of people don't understand, or they have a some sort of like whimsical concept of what it means to be an entrepreneur.
Right.
And I think, a lot of people could be independent, and that's great. And I highly recommend that people, work for a small business first. I always try to give that advice to young grads, is like, look, go work for a small company, not a big company.
Right.
Because then you'll get a sense of having real responsibility, when, you kind of get a sense of the stress of like, ooh, payroll is going to be tough this month.
Yeah.
They might ask you to like,
not take
a check.
I'm having flashbacks to a couple times years ago where I basically almost missed payroll.
Yeah. And but even as an employee, it's nice, because then you get a sense of some of the real trials and tribulations.
Yep.
Versus when you go to that big company, you sit in that cubicle, or you get that, very specific role, if things are pretty cozy and cushy, and it's hard to kind of, maybe break out of that. But I think that that's a really good place to start. But I think that the first challenge that I see is a lot of people feel this weird pressure, which I think is partially the time, partially it's the kind of media that's gone around this. You almost have to be your own boss.
Okay, let's talk about that, because that's really interesting. Not everybody needs to do that, right?
Well, not everyone should do it,
right,
statistically. But I think it's okay that people have the aspiration to do it. And so I try to help people try to figure out, where are the aspects of your business you're in. If it's a big company, join a small new team. If you're a fresh grad, or you have the chance to join a small business, just ask them, can you afford my salary for at least 1 year? Don't ask for 5 years or 3 years, but just like, is this salary like number cool? Can you afford me for a year? I'm willing to try something different, so you're not super stressed out, but you're not, maybe diving all the way into being your own founder, or you're an entrepreneur. So I think that's the first thing I always see is, try to test out that risk tolerance, like what you think you have, before you go all in.
So be in an environment where that's true for somebody else, where you're not the one that's going to get their head chopped off.
Yeah, and I think that's, it'll certainly test you. If you just go for it, like you just said, like payroll is my favorite one. Like you can find a way to like get food and find a place to sleep, but the second you hire someone and you got to be responsible for someone else's money, that's when the rubber really meets the road.
Mm-hmm.
And when you got to start like taking out loans and factoring your debt and trying to figure out, how the hell am I going to make payroll right now, and start asking people to take less money this month, like that's when you really are an entrepreneur. Like when you're by yourself, it's easier. On the other side, I think, that's just the kind of beginning of like, should I be my own boss and, be an entrepreneur or whatnot. The other side is, I think that a lot of people don't give the business plan or the planning behind a business enough credit.
Okay.
I mean, this is like surely like a Valley thing. I'm sure you
Yeah.
remember.
So,
like,
well, let's talk about that, because one of the definitions I've heard of a business plan that I like is a business plan is the one thing that's absolutely positively guaranteed not to happen.
yeah.
So, so let's talk about that. No, now that doesn't mean that I think that business plans are inherently bad, but let's talk about that concept and that idea and like what the value is maybe in the thought process.
Yeah, well, in the Valley, like that's sort of like this whole like they call it hack pivot jam. It's like this idea that, well, we don't really know. We'll let the market tell us. And like, all right, like I mean that kind of works, but
Yeah.
I think that the founders that I generally find are the best at their job or like have the easiest time are the ones that kind of think a couple steps ahead of the game.
Mhm.
You know, like they definitely have a plan. They understand why they're doing what they're doing. They really do understand their market. And the ones that I find struggle the most are the people that are the most passionate. They might even be the best. Let's say like they're an artist or something. They might even be like the best.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, being the most passionate or being the best doesn't always mean you're going to be a good business person. And running a company is 99% running a company.
Yeah.
And
it's hard. I mean, there's a lot of learning, right? So I've gone through this. I mean, I'm 9 years into my company, and I've made a lot of mistakes, and I think you just constantly have to, like, you never. I mean, this sounds so cliched, so I'm almost like, you know, I'm grossing myself out, but it's like you can't stop learning.
Well, the hard part about that is that a lot of people are like, well, I'm so passionate about this problem, or like I know this is the right solution, but they aren't good operators or business people, and they feel like they have to do it. That's also like the unwillingness. Like once you've started, it's also hard for people to give up the reins. Maybe
Right.
find a partner, find a co-founder, bring in an operator or COO, whatever. I see that all the time. Like, damn, like this problem is important. You're fantastic, but you're killing your company.
Right.
Like you're not the right one to do this. And a lot of times I would come in as like, we call it turnaround experts, but I didn't know that when I was doing this. I was just helping people out. And I realized it was happening kind of more often than I anticipated. And I was like, oh, this is actually like a thing that happens. Like here's a good business. It was going in the right direction, or it could go in the right direction, but it's not because the founders don't have the background. Bring in someone like me, and then I was just helping them turn that around, rebuild the business model, build the business plan, train them up, hire the right people, and get the company back on the right direction.
Now, what if you're a small business person that has a company and maybe it's been around for a few years and you are very passionate? What are some like actionable tips that if they don't have somebody like you to come in and help them see that? Because one of the problems is like the fish doesn't know it's in water, right? So it's very difficult to see. It's very easy. It's like when your friend talks to you about their relationship problems. It's very easy for you to identify their relationship problems. But then, you know, your own life is a mess, and you're like, you can't see your own problems. So what are some ways in which people can triangulate and understand some of their own issues?
Easiest thing is to ask for feedback. I mean, I think feedback is a gift. I've always said that. And I think it's really important that if people aren't giving you feedback, that's usually a bad sign. Like that means people really don't care. And I think it's important to solicit that feedback. So it could be by going to other people in your network or looking for other small businesses. It doesn't have to be some sophisticated, like go to a pitch competition, go get a business mentor. Like there are plenty of people that just are normal business people all over the place that will give you 5 seconds, you know, get a coffee, just get their feedback on it, right? I think that's probably the most important. Like you said earlier, that you can never stop learning. I think being open to feedback is really important. Entrepreneurs get this, probably like 80% correct sort of judgment of being super hard-headed. I mean, you got to be fairly crazy to be an entrepreneur, like just to start, but you can't let that confidence like be blind ego and not be willing to take feedback and understand.
So you have to be just crazy enough, but then just aware and open enough. So that's a tough balance.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know any great entrepreneur, honestly speaking, that hasn't had some coach or had some sort of advisor or someone really helping them. Like, I think you need to have someone that's willing to come at you pretty hard, give you some perspective.
Yeah, I talk about that in my book, actually, about seeking mentors. The book's not out yet, by the way, but I'm writing it. But it's about seeking mentors and seeking people who can help you triangulate things, right? Because a lot of times, like you are too deep in your own stuff.
Yeah, it was weird. I had a lunch with a young guy yesterday who saw my How to Find Advisors and Mentors class I did in San Francisco like 9-10 years ago. And he just told me about it yesterday at lunch. It's like, I forgot I even did that, I went back and looked at it. I was like, man, that advice still works, but I think that's far more important than people give credit for is having an advisor or a coach of some sort.
Okay. Well, at least you found that talk and not the one where you said that MySpace was going to be the next big thing, right?
Did I say that?
I'm just joking. It's something that held the test of time.
I always am a little fearful of doing those sort of specific predictions.
Yeah, like specific. Like this is what's going to happen. And then it shows up in a YouTube clip 10 years later.
Yeah.
All right. Well, where can people find you? If people are interested in learning more about what you're doing with Brinc on all your projects, where can people find you? What's your website and your Twitter and such?
Yeah, Twitter's where I'm the most active, just at Bay, so BETABAY. And my company, Brinc with a C, BRINC.io. Very specific what we do. Like we said, we focus on IoT and hardware companies, so fairly specialized.
Yeah, but maybe somebody in our audience is starting something related to that. So.
Never know. Yeah, we do investments. We help people make their products in China. We help educate people. So always happy if people are doing hardware products.
Oh man, I wish we talked more about that. That the issue of manufacturing in the U.S. versus China comes up a lot on this show. But
anyone that brings it up, let me know.
Yeah, maybe we'll do a follow-up episode. How often are you in Austin?
Just once a year for this, but
okay.
we can do it.
Yeah, we'll do another follow-up, and because that is an entire episode in itself. But
you should get like all the people that have done the both, and get them like multiple perspectives on it.
That would be an interesting episode.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much for taking the time.
Appreciate it.
Nice to meet you.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to Small Business War Stories. If you enjoy the show, share it with a friend, or you can subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or on our blog at blog.proven.com. If you have an idea for us, we'd love to hear it. Please email us at podcast@proven.com. See you next time. Small Business War Stories. Small businesses are the soul of America. And this is where they tell their stories. I am your host, Pablo Fuentes.